So, hi everyone, this is Prasad from Let's Upgrade, and we're back again with yet another podcast. And this time we have Naren with us, a very influential person from the industry with over more than 2 decades of experience from companies ranging like Google, Oracle, being a author, being a community player, and having his own community of developers, co-authoring great books that you as students might have already used in your college days, right? So today we are going to learn everything from him, from his experience from a software developer to venturing out into different sectors, as you can say, his gigs and working with big tech giants, to launching community, to authoring, to writing, and now a very, you can say, a very good motive that is doing, that is serving community and mentoring a lot of folks and students from different domains as a part of his work, right? So welcome, Naren, and thank you for joining us. And you have had an incredible diverse journey, right, from your roots in engineering to leading roles at big tech giants like Google and Oracle. And also, I guess you are also ventured into startup world and helping those companies by the means of investing in them. To kick things off, could you just share, you can say, summarize a moment, right, that encapsulates your career, right, and the impact that you have created as a tech enthusiast, or you can say the person that you have, the way of contributed to the tech community.
Okay, thanks Prasad for the invite, and thanks to the Let's Upgrade. And I'm happy to be here and share my experiences, and hoping that some of the inputs can be helpful to the viewers. So, as you mentioned, like my experience at least in the IT sector is around 22 years, and my background is computer science, and so I don't know whether there is one moment where I can define that it is the most impactful, but maybe since I was part of Google in recent, at least more than a decade, because Google had that impact on the industry. So indirectly, I was able to maybe help out in my own role, like any other Googlers. In having that impact, so I would always say that it is because of the company, because it's not that I did some startup which made that impact. It's just as any employee, and it may be like even though it may not be a fancier saying, see, I'm not known person, in the IT industry, but I will say to any student like entering the industry is still you can make some impact. Like it can be greater impact, but as through your company and all, so you will be playing critical role because Google is because of the engineers there, and you will be creating some impactful work every day as part of your job, and I might try to represent that as any engineer making that impact in the industry.
Right. So yeah, again, big thank you for actually taking out time. And as you said, right, so I kind of differ from that opinion that it is not just a company, it also matters that as an individual, right, how much efforts that you have put, right, into serving the community. Because yeah, I also meet a lot of developers, but I only meet a few who have taken that initiative to give back to the community and have come front apart from managing their day-to-day work side by side, and come front to help other developers grow, or come front to take initiatives. I'd like to go back and try my little start about your school days, right? So was there any, you can say, a pivotal moment or some things that happened in school that you can say would have sparked that thought, ki, okay, I have to become an engineer or I have to become a developer? Or was that you're like, because a lot of students have that mindset, ki, okay, I want to become astronaut, I want to become a doctor, I want to become a
Yeah.
dentist. But I don't think back that time there were like notions, ki, I'd want to become a software developer, right, back in the schooling days. So was there something that intrigued you or fascinated you about computers back in the schooling days?
I think at least I started my engineering in 93, I think, and obviously internet was not there. I heard that it is not to be every user can access, because even in our college we got it only later on in the final year for third year. So internet was not there, and I think electronics was the top branch, at least if you consider the
Correct.
engineering at that time. Nowadays also, like students try to pick electronics and computer science most of the times, apart from now AI and ML and those areas. So I think at that time, since the exposure was not there much about even the computers to every student and all, so including me. So there was nothing strong reason that I picked computer science over anything else. Maybe there was general interest about computer science. So and it was also like, I think somewhere it will be influenced by your teachers, maybe, because during those times, since there was no internet, you need some inputs, and normally your teachers in your class 12 and all, they will, or someone who's already in the industry and all, can guide you a bit. And I think based on that, it was in between like electronics and computer science. Because see, if you're trying to be a topper, and that's what people used to do, like, okay, pick engineering or medical. I had got into medical also, but I was not interested in the medicine. And so
Understood.
that was one reason, because everyone was going for these two professional courses, which kind of exist now also in most
Correct.
in the country. So since I was not interested in medical, I just tried to get a seat, but then I picked engineering. And in that, between computer science and electronics, if I just look back, maybe I was lucky that I picked computer science instead of electronics, at least for my personal taste, and even how this evolved over the decades.
Right. So by like in your college days, right, you were, I guess, into Indian Institute of Science, right? So
It was in masters.
yeah, it was in masters, right? So also in your bachelor's in Mysore and the ISC, right, in your master times, right, were there any like specific, you can say, extracurricular activities, or like, as we nowadays like see a lot of hackathons? I don't think back those days the concept of hackathons even existed. So what were the things like extracurricular activities that you, or they can say, since you were into computer field, that you would say like added or contributed significantly to your skill sets?
I don't remember anything like that happening at that time, because first thing is, they see internet was not there, so it's
There was
and
nothing.
even not, yeah. And it's like, see, not everyone, like, forget about laptops, like not even like everyone will be having a access to computer. Like
Correct.
most of us should go to the regular labs, book a slot, and then work on the computer. So just to get that access, that to a dummy terminal, very few people will have their computer at home and get access to that. And so I think during those times, just programming, like just to understand the programming itself, was complex, because of exposure, and just to get a feel that you can do something with that computer, even if it is using some turbo C, and generate some small UI, and even if it is A plus B equals C kind of a thing, print a hello world and all, itself is a new thing. And I think I don't recall any of the other activities, because this itself was new. And this itself was taking more time of us
Understood.
just to go through it.
So like were there cases, like I remember back in my school days or college days, there existed something called a cyber cafe. I believe a lot of still exist, but as you said, right, access to technology and computer has become very easy nowadays. And back to days, like were there instances like you guys would have gone to cyber cafe to program or to access computers? Because nowadays I think those cafes are just for games or something. Nobody uses them for studying anymore.
Yeah, true. Like at least the cafes that I remember was mostly in later years. I think not during my college days, because later on, that too, most people were using it for browsing. Before nowadays, if it
Correct.
is gaming, before it was just browsing, and maybe using some office, or just checking emails also, because that time the email also was new. Like, even when how before Hotmail came, there was no concept of email
Mhm.
also. So even checking email chat, that too, I think later on, end of 90s and all, that became the major reason maybe for people, because chatting and and just email, sending an email and checking an email was in. So at least for us as students, I don't remember that existed, because nobody was ready to invest and for computers. So I think what we can remember is one is the college lab facility, and other thing only with the friends, whoever has a computer, we will go to their place and use it overnight and all. So that was the, I think, setup for most of us.
Great. Right. So after the school days, right? I believe I like a very interesting like things. I don't know a lot of students nowadays even know what COBOL or things are like that. And I
Yeah,
guess your first job was into working into mainframes in COBOL
frames.
and
Yeah,
SQL, right? So could you just throw
yeah.
some light about like out from the college, right? That time, because see the hiring industry nowadays is totally different. So how was the experience that time, like graduating and getting into the first company? How those things work that time?
At least, so I finished my bachelor's from SJC Mysore College, and we used to have these campus interviews at that time also, because I think yeah, SJC was maybe the number one in Karnataka at that time. Now it may be in the top 10 maybe,
Mhm.
because nowadays Bangalore colleges have picked up, and at the time SJC was number two, I think, and many companies used to visit campus, and we used to have. I think nowadays that also a similar one. I think they will have these slots, and they will come and pick these maybe 6 semester students, and so we used to have these written tests and the campus interviews, and also we used. I don't know whether JC had it, but at least in ISC we also had this dream job option, where
Okay,
if you get one job, because normally if you get one offer, you can't attend more interviews, because
got
the
it.
college wants to distribute jobs to everyone. And at least we used to have even the dream job option in ISC when I did. So in JC, we used to have these campus interviews, and the goal of most of the students was to get an offer, just a job, because everyone wanted to have one stable job. Only very few people were thinking about MS, and some people did that also. They went to US for masters and all. So at least I was concentrating mostly on getting into a job, and even though later on I did, after 9 months I did the masters. That is, the gap was because we used to finish our bachelor's in October, and
Mhm.
MTech used to start in July. So because of the how the Karnataka, like the education, at least they used to lag because of how they started and all. Because even the seat sharing and all used to happen over newspapers at that time, because of no internet or no online presence. So it used to delay even getting to college. So at least in JC, we had these campus interviews, and I got into the CGI, which used to call as IMR, Information Management Resources at that time. Then CGI bought it later on in 2001, I think. So I got an offer there, because like it's not that, see, I picked it as my dream job. It was more like most of us will be trying out. Maybe some people will skip some of the companies if they're sure that they might get
Correct.
some other companies. So we used to do similar thing, but I ended up in this company which was working on the mainframes. It's not that I was interested in mainframes and wanted it to be there. It was more like I wanted a job, and
Mhm.
it's not that this is the first one I tried. I think I failed some of the other written test or interviews, and I ended up with this company. And also it's like after a few companies, the toppers, if there are many or better than me, they would have got into those companies, and there will be even less competition when you're applying for later in that campus hiring time. So I got into this company, and they were working on the mainframes. It's, I think, it was more like the regular, the service-oriented company, and they were maintaining these Michelin tires companies, at least the software
Mhm.
infrastructure, billing, sales, all those things. And I think even nowadays, there's still, I think some of them might be in mainframes, the Michelin, which is maintained by many of these IT companies. So we and obviously, since I think at that time, I don't remember whether Java existed at that time. at least we used to work on C, mainly in C at that time. And since these reporting and all was easier maybe with COBOL, and that was the one used in these companies, and we were working on their code base for using SQL, generating reports, fixing the issues and all. So at least we used to have these access to their systems, and even the UI and all will be like DOS like, text based thing. But since there was nothing to compare with, we were happy, working with that. We were since it's like for everyone their first job, and getting to know about the industry. It's a different environment, the working environment, compared to at least during those days from the college environment. So at least that was challenging and interesting. So I think that curiosity or interest just pushed at least for me to work there for around 10 months before I joined IAC.
Right. So like talking about this legacy technology like COBOL and all that stuff. Like, do you think like this technology still would stand out like as of today as we speak, right? Are they still in demand? Like when companies who are working in mainframes, the demand that was there back at that time, right? Is it still the same, or like would you suggest students who are, you know, kind of interested in those mainframes languages to pursue that as a career?
At least about picking a career and all, I normally always because I talk to people every week, and so I will always ask them to do the research, like where do you want to go, and how at least how the market is and all. Just don't go by whatever others say. So in that way, I won't recommend in general like which one to pick and all. But if I just look at those mainframes and all, that may be at that time, because see, like everyone was using mainframes and personal computer was just coming, and so because of reasons, and even like these big companies, they don't want to just move to the new technologies. It's like now people might hesitate to go to cloud at least few years back, because on-premise thing what they want, because they're not sure about this privacy, or even we have these policies where Europe does not want their data to be outside Europe, or even
Correct.
this kind of I think reasons has pushed for many companies to stay in mainframes at that time, and that was one reason. Maybe like many people were working on COBOL and those things. So nowadays, I don't recall anyone working on the COBOL related stuff, unless they might be dealing with these kind of clients, maybe still having some of those machines. So what generally, since you're asking about the language related things, at least I have seen many people will just pick Python maybe nowadays, because of ML
Easy
libraries are in easy, and so that I will always suggest not to go for Python. Pick C or Java, and try to understand the programming through those languages. Become an expert in that language, at least, because at least your initial thinking process should be through those languages. Then you can understand how maybe easier through Python, or to understand why it is easier on what is that abstract layers that they have put to make it easier and all. So I will always suggest C or Java, because at least in my time with Google, most of our servers were in C++ or Java. So most Java, because of it's easier if you want to support more mobile related things and all. But if there is a critical need of the performance stuff, we always went for C++. So and even I think nowadays, even in semiconductor and in those areas, people still prefer the C++ and RC. So I think at least if somebody wants to be a software engineer, I would say start with C or C++ first, then maybe a little bit of Java, and then go for any other language. If you are in a working environment, I don't have to remember many stuff. I can just Google. That's what we did even in Google. Google things, or even with a lot of code base, we can refer code, and that's what many people do. you copy paste code and work on that. It's not that you have to rethink, remember stuff. That is not needed. You just need that idea of the programming or debugging, analyzing, because analyzing is a very important skill for at least engineers. That's what I would say, that if you want to work for bigger companies, there will be huge code base will be there, and you won't be writing your code in isolation. You might be
Correct.
putting some piece of code inside that big system, and you should be very good in understanding the code, analyzing the code, how quickly you can, because you can't take weeks together just to understand some code base. So analyzing is a skill that is needed, I think, for the students.
Great. So I guess the gist is like just do a research and see what's trending and what has potential forward. Like as you rightly mentioned, right? Maybe like one thing that we could pick is semiconductor. The industry in semiconductor is going to grow like exponentially, like in coming years. So people like students who are good in like the concepts and the core programming skills could rather focus on C++, and could have a gem of a career in that sector, because I guess we are seeing a boom in that semiconductor industry very very fast, right. So I have a kind of I was, as I mentioned, right, while going through the profile, before we move on to the actual corporate stuff, there's a quite interesting take like that you had taken in your career. I guess you are also working as a creative head, like you had your ad agency, Uppi Ads, right, where you worked along with some Kannada film star Upendra, right?
Yeah,
So could you, and yeah, and I guess a lot of people, I don't know how many of recollect the name Navratna hair oil now.
you're right. Yeah,
Like it was a legendary ad, and
yeah,
right, so it was a
yeah.
crazy, you can say the famous hair oil for headaches, right?
True.
So could you just talk about that, because I don't know,
Uh,
like if we talk about Gen Z or the students nowadays would have hardly seen that brand now, right?
True. But I think brand might still exist. I think,
Yeah, it is there, it
but
is there.
yeah, but yeah, maybe because there is no TV ads nowadays.
Yeah.
So that may be one reason. So at least to just quickly cover that experience, I worked with the Kannada film star Upendra, who is still one of the top stars. He's also a director. He was a well-known director. Then he became a star in Kannada industry and even in Telugu industry. So I got the connection with him because I had this interest of writing. Like I wanted to explore the writing as a passion. So because I did some of these multiple things in parallel with my IT,
Correct.
career since 2002, I think. So it was more like I wanted to explore and see where I get more success, or because I didn't want to just stop everything and just explore one stuff and take that risk. I wanted to minimize the risk and explore multiple things in life. So this is one area where I tried to explore with in the Kannada film industry related to these creative things. So I worked with him and his team and all. In general, even like with assisting in editing, writing process, the story discussions and all. So during that time, we as a team explored this ad agency, because at that time he was also an ambassador for the Navaratna hair oil in Canada.
Okay.
And
Mhm.
so as part of that, we created this ad agency and did few of these at least ads where I was able to at least explore and learn things even from him and his team. So where I try to play at least an assistant director role or in the writing process, overall production itself, for making these ads. And so we put our efforts for maybe around a year in that ads, and then it was kind of deprioritized because most of the people involved with this were also busy with other things. Like I was also in the IT industry and all. But that was an experience. This is not just related to the ad agency. I was exploring the film industry for many years through that,
Okay.
checking whether it is a good thing to go there,
Take a switch.
So it's is it worth? Because see, I didn't go there full time because I felt see, it's not a like see, just a dream or interest is not enough. You should also think with data points, because you have only one life and you're losing your years and all. So it should
Correct, correct.
be because like for me, I had put all my efforts in my computer science background. Have studied my bachelor's and masters, and I was in a good position at the time. I was working with Oracle, and even when I joined Google, also I was like a little bit occupied with some of these film industry related things. But I kind of you can say that if I'm just look at my IT industry, I'm kind of successful because I was working for Google as a software engineer. That too, like when I joined Google, it was around 50 people or less than 50 people in Bangalore
Wow.
when they so a few months, I think just 1 year back they started when I joined Google. And also it so my suggestion, whoever wants to explore such things, like see, I was in a good position in the IT industry just because of some other interest. And people might say, okay, take risk to become successful and all, but we are only seeing the success stories and not the failures of so many people who
Failures.
are done.
Correct, correct.
Right? So in that way, I consciously always try to do that in parallel to see whether that makes sense, or can I slowly explore that field later years and all.
Mhm.
So yeah, so that was like an interesting, and at least see, I was able to learn things from the movie industry, or because see, nowadays I just spend some time with creating some YouTube videos as a passion or hobby and all.
Correct, correct.
Even though I might still have that some passion about making movies and all, but I don't know whether I will explore more. But it is one option to explore if I'm getting bored of other things in life, that I might explore. So at least this whole thing that the opiates and other things exposed me as a experience, without taking much of the risk
Right.
in that
So, like
area. And
to
and
summarize,
also
yeah,
and also like see, I'm consider myself as a creative person, and that kind of filled the void at that time, for that interest.
understood. So basically, like to summarize, it is like even if you're trying to take risk, make sure that you have a stable, like a source of income, and your life is stable rather than like basically just of like taking a jump, evaluate and calculate the risk that you are going to take and how it is going to reflect back on your career, right? And yeah, I guess this is not just the one thing that you did, but you also like I wow, that is like a crazy like profile that you have. Like you also like had your first RCB fan club, and when you launched the RC Fans Anthem song, right? I guess that was for the launch of IPL for RCB team.
Yeah, true. I think
Yeah.
it
So
was in
how was that? Like again, like this is I guess of course this is something that you were pursuing side by side to your career in Google, if I'm not
true,
wrong, right?
true.
So
Yeah, yeah.
how did that come again into the picture? Like working for
Uh,
the now from media, now you're going into the cricket, like sports.
Yeah, it's. I think it was in 2008, and I think one reason for that push was also one of my friend who was trying to do these. His name is Raviraj, and he was trying multiple startups, and we consider him as a serial entrepreneur in our friends group because he was trying many of these ideas. He was, maybe he was on the other extreme to what I mentioned about myself. He was
Correct.
taking too many
Going all in.
risk. Right? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So he was that kind of a person, and so we both, merged into this. So in the other extreme, he was there, and I am in the another end, more cautious and. With more ideas. So I think 2008 when the IPL started, and we thought there is more scope to create a fan base, kind of a startup for the fans. It's more a platform for the fans because it was new. IPL was new. Nobody was sure how it will take further, and we created this rcfanclub.com at that time. as a platform. And to push for that, we ventured into this. We At the time there was one famous Urban Lads was a music album in Canada, which was trending at that time. It's kind
Okay.
of rapping in Canada was kind of new at that time, and
Yeah, yeah.
so we collaborated with those singers and the music director, and so then we created this song, and I wrote the lyrics for that, and we try to push that as launch of RCB during that time, but so what didn't work well for us was the at that time Vijay Mallya and the team, they were not ready to accept us,
Okay.
because they were having their own plans,
Correct.
they also
Correct.
created their own music album, and their own website and all. So we were it's not easy to be successful at that time, because you're not collaborating with the brand, and they're not ready, right, for that. But we still went ahead as an experience, and created that platform where users can create their profile and get at least be active as a group community and all. So at this moment, like, only that song exists, and I think we maintained for a couple 2-3 years that platform, and so it's I don't consider that as at least a success as a platform. It was just as an experience in the
Experiment that
production,
you.
yeah, and also the production, because see, at least personally I had this interest of the movies and all. So here it was more like production of one song, and that end-to-end process, and involved with that and all. So but at least we were featured in a TV9 Kannada news channel and all during that time, because there was push, but it couldn't sustain because of the bigger brand, so we were
So like,
competing but helping also.
no worries. So like, just a curious question. Like, as of today, like, does that song exist somewhere on the internet, on YouTube or something? Like, is
Yeah,
it there?
it's there, like it's in my kind of, it's I have a idea in clips as one more separate channel where I have dumped these things. It is
Okay.
linked from my YouTube channel.
Okay. So all the folks that are watching right and are curious, who want to check that initial RCB fan anthem, right? So we'll leave the link in the description, so you can go and check that out and leave your comments on how, and maybe you can tag people, so that could have made into IPL, right? So you can tag
Yeah,
folks.
and also I think, like, Rahul Dravid was the captain, I think, of RCB at that time.
Okay, okay, right. So please go and check out. We'll leave that link in the description for you folks to go and get a first, you can say, listen to it. So I guess this is back almost 16 years now. Yeah. So like,
Yeah,
this is the origin of IPL, right?
yeah,
Great. So
yeah,
yeah.
true.
So now moving back into, like, moving forward, back forward. I guess I'm missing the timelines, but okay. So from, like, we're in 2008 now, we'll go back into 2000s. So where I guess your journey started at Oracle, right?
Yeah,
So you have worked at two
I
tech
think kind of
giants
second one after masters. Before
after
that I was in
masters, right?
Figma.
So
Yeah,
from
yeah,
CGI, then you went to Oracle, right? So, and then Google. So we'll talk about Oracle first. So how did your journey start at Oracle? Like, how was that the transition from working at CGI to being at Oracle, and quite for a good amount of time, like 7 years,
yeah.
right? So
I
if you
think
could just give a brief on your journey there.
at least after my CGI experience, I joined ISC and did my master's in computer science there, and from there, through campus interview, I got into Oracle, and so it was not like see, I was searching for Oracle. It was just by default, like through campus, I got into Oracle, and when I joined Oracle, it was then I came to know that, okay, I got into a database security team, and that was a quite new team that they were exploring in Bangalore office, and it was an interesting at least journey of 7 years as part of the database security team. One is, like, I was working closely with the database that to security related code base, which was written in C long back, and then on top of that we built at that time some of these certificate authority in the security area as new products for customers of Oracle. So I kind of became some got some expertise in the security area in general, even though like I couldn't continue that in Google, because Google was kind of, forget what you have learned. It's like this is something. Yeah. So they're never worried about, then most of the time they will never worry unless you are some big shot in the industry and doing research in a particular area. Otherwise they just look at a person and their skill set, and irrespective of what you have worked in the past, they just want you to use your skill set in new things. So I couldn't work on the security related stuff later on in Google, but in Oracle journey, if I look back and compare Google and Oracle, Google, since most of us in Google, we had these at least quarterly OKRs, and most, even though there may be some yearly plans and all, we always focused on the quarterly basis. Whereas Oracle used to have these multi-years releases, because I think last time I worked with Oracle was 11, I think Oracle 11 G or something they used to release. And because of those multi-year thing, they already will have this timeline saying, okay, maybe these 6 months you're just writing some requirement specs and all. So it's a very, it might feel like very slow process, like
longer timelines.
multiple, right? Yeah. And so at least I got that experience working with Oracle, that kind of a release process and thing. Whereas in Google, you will be going through multiple things with idea to production within a quarter. At least that was a different, and even culture and the kind of people you work with, but at least from and also when I joined Oracle, I think we had maybe 100 to 200 people in Bangalore at that time. And so it's kind of, both Google and Oracle, when I joined, they were like startups only in Bangalore.
Correct.
Because it's a small office, and over the years I saw it's growing, and in the initial days you used to can recognize everyone in the office and all. So that also another combination, at least I got to witness kind of a startup environment in both the companies. And Oracle, I always worked with like both companies in Bangalore, and I have good memories with Oracle also. And because I switched to Google in 2006, and that too because my friend joined Google, and otherwise I was happy, to retire with Oracle. I was happy at that time with Oracle as a, the kind of work I was doing, and overall the culture, the environment, at least during that time, it was not even more stressful also, and there was planned well, and so we had ownership also in Bangalore.
Right. So since we have two big companies to discuss, right? So I guess this the way you answered this question would make more sense. Like talking about Oracle, and then in respect to that, how it transitioned into Google, right? So on the similar note, I guess that's just something I would like to carry the conversation forward rather than talking separately, right? So that a student gets an idea of how two different companies operate in two different, you can say, ways of working, right? So like how did your roles and responsibilities, like to just whatever just you said right on that, like how did your roles and responsibilities evolve while working in Oracle versus working Google? And you can say what were the key differences you could find out in the company culture overall, right?
Okay. So I think like at least for Oracle, I joined as a fresher, like out of college, and even though I had that some 9+ months of experience, Oracle did not consider that as experience at that time. They still consider me as a fresh graduate from masters. So that's why even I joined a new team, and so it's like I think we started with some 3 members in that database security team. Slowly, I think it grew to more than 10 to 15 people over 7 years. So I joined as a fresh graduate, and later on when I exited Oracle, I might had a couple of the promotions, and I was managing one portion of the team, because when I exited Oracle, database security team was managed by two managers, and I was one of them, reporting to US at least leadership. So at least that was kind of organic growth, I would say. It's one is because so maybe, yeah, one of the leader maybe moved out of to different teams maybe, and so the I was one of the senior folks in the team and worked for many years, and technically competent in that area and all. So that kind of even helps you with the growth, and also you will try to showcase sometimes either you might have shown some of these skill sets for leading the team and other stuff, and sometimes they might have a gut feel and give you that responsibility and showcase that but in most cases normal expectation is you will show your those attributes early on. At least my growth with Oracle over those 7 years was like I ended up being a manager, and then its own challenges of managing people. It's not only just the technical leadership, but more about helping them to grow and all. And compared to that with Google, so even though I joined with experience to Google, I joined an Indic languages team. We had this team which was working on Indian languages related things, like the transliteration, where we wanted to support inputting Indian languages content. It may be just writing a document in, say, Hindi. That's what I think this team started to support. But you don't have a keyboard to support that, so you just want to write it in alphabetical English. But the thing is, already there were keyboards to convert it with the static mapping. Whereas the transliteration that Google implemented was trying to have some context based on where you are in the world, so that whether it is if it is Bharat, I don't know whether Bharat has Bha, I guess BHA. Like without H, can you give that emphasis? Based on where that letter is. So they tried these n-grams and all. They will have these word counts. Try to have the stats of, maybe you can still call it as some kind of ML. In those times, to have that built in the data set, so that you can cover that. So at least I joined the Indic languages team, and we worked on many Indian language related projects, where even in a search we used to type in English, and if it is a Hindi interface, for example, we used to test with Shah Rukh Khan. If you start searching SHAH, and if it's Hindi interface Google search page, it used to suggest the queries in Hindi, for Hindi. Wow. And for other South Indian languages, it used to give in that, and that too, like, you should already trained based on some of these top queries, like maybe if you're typing RAJ in say Tamil portal, it might pick Rajnikant maybe in the top query, whereas in Kannada it may be Rajkumar, who was the top star. So we used to have that kind of data set and train on that. So I started working in that team as a new member. The team existed when I joined Google, and later on I worked with multiple maybe 3-4 teams. Like I worked in the Indic team, and then it got closed. It moved to China, and not that I don't know, not that they maintained the Indian languages. It's more like, I think, some general infrastructure China team was working, and they maintained it. And then I worked on newspaper digitization. There was a team where we used to have these, if you want to see when a newspaper page when Titanic went down. So because that time there was a newspaper which published, right? So Google used to scan these newspapers, and you could search and see that they used to have this. I think it is now it is shut down. So we used to have these newspapers from those times scanned and able to search and all. So I used to work on that team, newspaper digitization. Then I moved to Google Docs, and that's where I stayed for more than 8-9 years. And I think for last 8 years, when I was with Google, I worked. Uh, I started with a team called Document Conversion Team, which was a backend service in Google for many of the other some 50 plus products. It was more like convert from one document to the other type. More like if you have a HTML page and you want to print it into a PDF,
PDF format
yeah,
conversion basically.
that product will send the document to this backend service asking for a PDF from HTML. So we used to support these 80 plus different file formats from one format to the other, maintaining the fidelity and all that stuff. So since I started that team, even though like we had that product somewhere in Australia at that time, but we moved it to Bangalore and we started expanding on that. So I took over that as the initial engineer when it moved to Bangalore, and slowly I started leading that team. For many years before I exited Google. So again, here also as you, and this is normally what happens. Even rarely someone will stay in the same team for multiple years in any company like Google, because that team may not exist or the product itself, or even reorg can happen and it can move
Correct.
across different places. So very few people will stay in the same team for more than a decade and grow in that, or else people have to jump across teams, with more experience, and also find some opportunities to grow, in those things. So my growth happened, through these multiple teams, and at least in one team for and also like see it's again then becomes some individual decision whether you want to stay in a particular team for more years. I was happy with that team and leading the team, but some people might just again jump and explore other teams and all. So that was kind of my and I was like, at least in Google also I was briefly managing as a manager. We call it as TLM, tech lead manager. I was briefly a couple of times, but I was not so much interested as management aspect. So I consciously moved into IC kind of a role, but it's a team lead, so where you're responsible for technical things for the team and team members, but not related to management related things, at least people management.
Right. So, like, as since you mentioned this, like you were working as an individual contributor, right, but in a lead role, right. But I have heard about, I have heard from many developers and many managers and many CEO CTOs that I speak to. There are different challenges that one faces as an IC or an individual contributor versus the challenges that you face as a leader, right. And I know like it's there are very like at times manager find it very like the task of people management, right, is very very crucial, where you have to also be patient, understand that it is a teamwork, and also handle every individual that might come from different background, different bias on that opinion and all that stuff, whether like, and on the other hand you become one of that individual contributor that holds that bias, that holds that
Yeah,
thing, and you are fighting your manager, right. So
yeah,
how does that differ, like being an individual contributor versus when you go on the other side of the table and become a
yeah.
manager, and you see yourself like, okay, I was there a few years back, like someone else is doing that to me, like how is that whole
Yeah,
experience?
yeah, I think see like at least I always try to look back and see my own personal experience, how I felt, like even if I'm a manager and the team lead, I want to treat someone the way I wanted to be treated as,
Correct.
sometimes it may work or it may not work because of each individual characteristics, but at least I try to do that, like how I will feel in that position. And at least when I was with even IMR or the CJ and the Oracle, since I was a fresher and I was on the other side as an individual team member, and I had my own issues to rise. I raised it also. Like I like many people, I raised the salary issues when I was with Oracle, fighting for because at least during those days, people used to just jump for the salary hikes, and it will be too much of salary hike. People will get with multiple jumps. Whereas if you stayed in the same company, it will never go up and all. So I had fought with the HR and all, with the managers, that see, others are getting so much in the industry and you're not paying more. So because that is the mentality of most of the engineers, and I was also in that, and they will say, okay, stay for a long term, we will take care of you and all, and they do it. Because but they see, it's more like, see, for if people are jumping, they will get some
Instant hike, like
bump, instant hike, but then they will try to manage them, balance for the long term. So I was in there, like because I was not exposed to the industry, I was not aware, and I was concentrating on the short term, benefits, and I was there arguing with HR and managers, but I didn't quit Oracle. I stayed there for 7 years with more promotion and more hike. And also when I became manager, obviously, even though if I am say unhappy with my own salary, I have to, try to convince the other team members, and what is the priority. And also, I played that role as also. How I played was more about, see, one is like, since I was with Oracle for many years, and so you will build that value system to some extent.
correct.
And it's not that I'm just playing that role just for the sake of it. Since I was with the company for so many years, so there will be genuine attachment to the company, and also what I have seen in that experience in my and also I will be in a better position. But so it's not guaranteed that I can convince the team members and all, if they have those doubts and all. But to
Correct.
some extent, I can clear them or give my own perspective. I was, as a manager, I never tried to, um, uh, do these extra manager type of talk. I was more like very frank about about my own experiences as a manager. I was not trying to play the role just for the company. I was more like, see, everyone is working for the money, and it's so let's be frank, and then try to negotiate and see what best even company can do, and as an individual we can do. And also I was able to tackle those things in Oracle, and in Google and all. And also it's not just not just for the manager, even for a team lead also. It's one is making sure that they're happy with the work they're doing, and at the same time, for these fresh engineers, you want to allow them to grow. That means you have to give them work where they can showcase their skill set, they're interested in their work, and grow. So that means not everything will be fancy thing in a work environment. There will be grungy work, there will be boring work. So as a lead, you might have to do that
Correct.
and give the fancy work to the engineers in the teams. And also those are the things, as a lead, you will start doing that, because for you, success of the team is important, because ultimately if it is successful, you will get the credit for that also. So you will try to do those things, and one is making sure that technically they grow and they get that opportunity. And also at the same time, see, even company like Google also, there will be politics, because there are people, there are conflicts, there will be issues among the engineers, and how they communicate with each other, or there will be what if there is, since there will be collaboration, so how the credits will be given to each of those contributions, there will be grayscale. So it's you should be aware of those things and handle it well before something escalates. That too, if there are fresh engineers who are not aware of those things. So these are the challenges will be there, but with experience, and also it's how will you help other team members to grow as another team lead. It's I would say it's and also like over the years of say of 1 or 2 decades of experience, even our own thought process would have changed, our priorities would have changed. So most of us normally will adopt to the new role if we become a manager or a team lead, and so I won't see that it's as a something like a conflict or something like I was a team member long back and now a team manager. But maybe since over the years we would have evolved personally, I think it may be natural also. You will easily adapt to that value system and help the others.
Right. So I guess that throws a lot of like light on how teams operate from both ends, right? So talking about
Yeah.
like the work that you have done at both the organizations, right? Were there any particular memorable project from each one of those, be it at Oracle or Google, that you think had created significant impact at that time?
At least, okay. With Oracle, as I said, I was part of the database security team, and where we were working on some of the, at least even basic, um, like the privileges of a user, like, whether they have a select privilege or insert privilege in the database. So we used to work at that level, even this is not something I would consider as very, some big impactful project, but it's more like interesting thing. Like they used to store, I think, these um, privileges, user privileges, maybe in each bit, and because of the byte, maybe 2 bytes were used and all. So I think for more than they could support some only 16 of that privileges, user privileges, and then they were adding new things and all. It was, expansion was not easier, and we need to work around those things. And I worked on those stuff, but at least with security team in Oracle, we what we worked on is certificate authority. That was an interesting project, even though it was led by a few more teammates, and I was one of the contributor. It was like, at least I was new at the time to these security related things, and creating your own certificate authority is a interesting and a big project. So that it's more like, I think, some enterprise customer can have their own certificate authority server, and they can issue certificates for these private and public keys, like, for these SSL. Um, so at least from the security area, it was an interesting and work also, and Oracle was able to create a product around that. Because when I left, it was in the final stages, I think. So I don't know, like, how it is doing now, but that product. And maybe like, one interesting thing when I was part of the Oracle was more about, like, as you mentioned about the book itself. So more about
Correct.
the what I did outside my regular expectation of the role, where we interacted with one of the engineering colleges in Bangalore called RB Engineering College, and we did a semester course with them. Like, it was a proper elective course for the engineering students, and
Mhm.
we it's all the, like, only the Oracle employees conducted on weekends this course, and as part of that, we wrote that book, and we used to visit the college, teach, and over the weekends, and we even hired some of them as interns, and they joined Oracle, and so at least that experience, doing these kind of things was at least. Even though it may not directly help you in your technical role or the growth, but for life, for the long term, these exposures will help you maybe with your leadership skills, or how you work with people, and how much you can put more efforts beyond what is expected, because you have to do some of these things without any expectations, because at the time I used to even run a magazine, e-magazine for Oracle Bangalore as the main editor, and the extra effort you need to put, without any expectations of, because that will nowhere affect your performance or salary or anything. So that kind of interesting thing that I can recall. Because product wise, anyway, Oracle was doing good at the time, and so we went with that flow even in. But at least if I consider as a Bangalore office, what we did was a new product which was entirely driven in Bangalore, and that at least is not common, at least during those times where these US companies will not give some major product ownership and all outside US. So at least that happened in Bangalore at that time. So that is a good thing if I look back at that time with Oracle. And whereas with Google, since Google, since whatever products I worked was anyway well-known products, like Google News was well-known, and I worked with Google Docs for many years later on, which was again. But maybe like when I started with Google Docs, it was not so popular, because even I don't remember using Google Docs before joining the team. Also, I think later on I started using Google Docs, and even we released Android versions later after a few years. So imagine at that time even it was not there on Android and all. So at least whatever we worked on became more popular later on, and nowadays even though I'm not associated with Google, I cannot live without Google Drive, Google Sheets, Google
Correct.
Docs and all. So it's in that way, that whole product is become part of life, at least for many people, even Gmail, and with Android and all generally, but at least for Google Docs, since I was part of that. So it's it's more about there will be challenges for each product that we work on, and collaborating with even US people, and delivering it and all. So that kind of challenges was there in all the products that we worked on. But I don't think there is something like nothing I can say that okay, I worked on the Gemini kind of that fancy thing. But at least maybe I don't know whether you're familiar with Jeff Dean, who is heading Google AI related VP. He's a kind of well-known guy technically, but at least I can recall that once I got a mail from him during those days, because of my code broke Google server
Wow.
such thing, and he digged through my code, and he commented what we can improve on. And so he's like there are jokes about him, like Rajnikant kind of jokes, like how good he is in technical area, like the Rajnikant, the actions. So getting a mail from him, and for whatever the reason. So there are some memorable things. And because even like in Google and all, sometimes it's not that the kind of product you work, even with people you work with also. Like
Correct.
I said,
Correct.
just a interaction, small interaction with Jeff Dean, or even like I had interaction with Kernighan. I don't know whether like the C++ very famous. Let us see. I think let's main C programming book by Ritchie and Kernighan is kind of a bible for C
Correct.
programming. And Richie has died like a few years back. I think the same year when um, our Apple Steve Jobs died. But Kernighan is still there. He works for Google few months in a year. He's still, I think, a professor. And I happened to do some small programming piece which is used by him in one of his projects. And I got an email from him and all, interacting with him. It's kind of, we read his book, programming in C and all, and interacting with him was kind of memorable things, working with Google and all. Because you happen to work with so many people who are kind of legends, or, worked so many years. I even worked with one of guy who was worked with internationalization for many years in Sun Microsystems and all, and he happened to be in the internationalization team. And you happen to, at least during those times, you happen to interact with such people, who are an expert and top guys in those areas. And so I think that, at least for me, because I'm not some big guy, in the technology field, and but at least working with Google, we happen to work with such people. And so those are the things where we can create some impact, I would say, instead of any fancy product or something.
Right, understood. So I guess I agree with you on this point. Like, it is not just the work that we do, but it is with whom we are working, right?
Yeah,
The networking or the relationships that we make at work, the people we may meet, and
yeah,
the impact with them that we create towards the society, that is
true.
also important rather than your day-to-day work, right? So, like, summarizing this whole segment of Oracle and Google, right? One last question I have on this is like since have been worked in diverse sectors, from like database and into cloud, docs, news, and even search, I guess, in Google, right?
True.
So
Yeah.
how did this whole journey, or this whole, I believe that was a roller coaster ride, as you mentioned. Listening to, I have understood, like, it was not easy, because every time that you're saying, right, I have heard these things, right? We were just starting, but that itself lays that thing that you are just, setting the things up, the places that you start. And that again also resonates with the time that we are now, what, almost around 16, 17 years in future, from the things that you have worked, right? So that's
Yeah.
again almost 2 decades later we are talking about this. So how did that whole journey, or whole all that experiences, shape your or enhance your perspective towards tech? Like, I of course I believe it would have changed a lot of things, it would have added your knowledge, and it would have changed the way you thought about some particular things, right? So if you could just cover that.
At least since I worked for around 14 plus years with Google, and one thing about working for companies like Google is we won't be using any well-known technologies which is outside, because most of them will be internal technologies, and some of them might be open source later on. Like, for example, the kind of build system we used to have later on, I think it's an open source, and people would have used those things. So most of it, like, we used to have one internal page called MoMA, and it is kind of internal search page. And like how we search Google, you always search these internal MoMA pages, and for all the content you want, for reading, or the technical related papers, or whatever you need, tutorials and all. So you will be, and that too, like, as you grow in your career, you will not have much free time to explore what the outside world, what is happening outside, or can I learn something, some technology related thing. And 24 hours is not enough, as you grow in
Correct.
different roles, and you also want some time for your personal life. So it's not easy for multiple years when you start growing in your career. So what happens is you will be restricted to the internal world of Google, their technologies. You will become an expert or exposed to most of the things, and also at the same time, these infrastructures will be evolving. So it's not that, like, I'm using one storage now, and in maybe within 5 to 10 years, that would have slowly replaced by another one. So you would have moved also, even though you're a user of that inside Google. So even that technology which is specific to Google is also changing. So
Correct.
our exposure was always specific to Google internal things. Say, even if I want to have these, some server client libraries talk to over the network, just need some libraries, some core libraries. Some team is working on that, and we will be using it. So at least based on my experience there, it's I will go back to the same thing. Like, the as a programmer, analyzing the code is very basic and important. Before even writing that code. So here also, like, how quickly you can adopt to these different technologies which is internal to Google. Because I won't see, for example, like, even though I stayed for so many years, as I said, I won't be having time to even, spend some time start studying some papers which Googlers have written, on those technologies. So
Understood.
to do that, you should have a lot of time, plan, and then only you can study. So what we do is like we will be focused on our own role. So what is that? And also because we have these quarterly goals, the one of the maybe advantage or disadvantage with this is, so you have 3 months and you have this quarterly goal. So in the first month you have starting with a goal for 3 months, but quickly in the initial stages you will finish 1 month, and then second month you are just rechecking whether you are on target for the quarter. So it's like the 3 months is very less when you think about these quarterly goals, and quickly you will be losing these quarters and years also. You won't realize how quickly you will finish 10 years in any of those roles. So we will be just focusing on whatever technologies we need to execute that, the whatever the responsibility that we have for the current product. Because at the same time we may also have to think like how, like if I'm leading a team for say document conversion service, it used to handle around I think some 10 to 20 billion conversions per day of various documents. So it's a huge number just to maintain the system stable, and also that when it is growing some 10% every year, so how to make sure it is stable without asking for more resources and all that too. When I was with Google, we had this I think the chipset were I think before COVID time or something was not available in the whole market, and RAM was very costly at that time, and every company was kind of trying to optimize their resources. So in Google also we were trying to push for optimizing all our servers, but the problem is most of the servers will have very high peaks, so it's hard to support the peak traffic and still optimize it for a general it's so that, and you need to think about those things when you're owning some infrastructure. So you'll be dealing with these kind of challenges, and as you grow into different roles you will be dealing with different kinds of challenges, which may not be just a technical thing, how you execute overall stuff. So I think uh, these kind of challenges is there always, and you try to adopt to them, and pure technical things comes later on. So for that, as long as you have these quick learner attitude and mindset, and that strength, you will quickly pick those things and use it than trying out for some technology at first and then building. So that's how I think at least my exposure with Google, at least over the years, was. It's most of the non-technical attributes and skills that was very important for surviving, growing, even creating an impact, executing, than pure technical, because technical you need, but it comes later on. Uh, as long as you need, you pick it up. And about since your question was more about even the technology related different technologies, um, sometimes it may be even a particular team, like maybe like the AI specific or these BART specific teams, definitely they will be focusing on that aspect as a technology. But for such things also there will be few top guys like Jeff Dean and all, who were the superstars of that field, who will be driving those things, and then some team will pick it up and to execute. So only they will be defining some of these technology wise, whereas various other product teams will be depending on other core teams within Google without worrying too much about these other technologies. It's more like what user wants, and that's what you say, like user first is kind of approach, and let's try to build some product which is good. And I think in these cases, I think as a engineer, what you will think about is a pure computer science engineer thoughts, like how can I optimize this? Like while writing the code, don't write some crappy code like which is consuming more resources. Just think about that. Like if you're doing some loop and if it goes millions of times, make sure you're not allocating some unnecessary memory within the loop. Just put it outside. That kind of common sense is what needed as an engineer, because in bigger companies there will be core teams who will be building these core libraries, because maybe for startup it's a different story. You will be involved
You'll be
with
building everything
everything.
on your own.
Everything only when you reach a stage, then you will rethink about optimizing some of these stuff. But I would say this generic skill set of engineer or a computer science engineer, and these non-technical skills, maybe soft skills and with experience what you get, is what is needed, and also you will be more successful using that, I guess.
Great, great. So moving on the next segment, right? All done about Google and Oracle. All about a tech giant. So you have some experience with startups as well, right? So just to put it out there, right, and for the audience who is watching this, so transitioning from such huge corporations like tech giants of the world, not even countries, right, to startup ecosystem, what you would say are the most striking differences that you find in the work environment and overall culture, or how things work? Because as you mentioned, right, one side it is everything organized, and on the other side it is exact opposite and extreme chaos, right? So how does things differ, like when you're working with such large corporations and when your experience in startups?
I think, yeah, maybe like I will again like even like a company like Google, maybe from the infrastructure point of view, it will give you everything. Like I need some libraries. Okay, I can just search and see somebody has implemented and even working on that, maintaining the code and all. So that is an advantage in bigger companies, that you can easily use them and all. Whereas mindset wise, a company like Google will still operate at a team level like a startup. Like, for example, even in Google also, like in our team, we as a team only we were discussing. Even the team was some maybe less than 10 members. We used to brainstorm what is the next 2 years plan for our team. So this is the product we are owning, or this is the service we are owning. What else fancy thing we can do within our boundaries of this product and all. So that was still a startup kind of environment, because even we again pitch for, okay, this is what we want to do in this year, and we maybe negotiate with a product manager and then with leadership about, see, this is what we want and how this can help the company, or merge with their goal for this year. And then we operate like a startup in at least executing that, because then it's not that somebody else is monitoring us closely. It's a self driven, but we expose how we are progressing and all to the org level. But the mindset would be similar to a startup, at least there. At least if you look at the pure really startups and all, even with people I have talked to with startups and all, see, it's more about how, if suppose, if let's say people like me who have experience in bigger companies and start working in a startup, what value we can bring here is the processes that we have. Like, see, for example, in Google, we'll be very strict about the code readability. So your code should be readable, because only one guy will be writing it, and many people will be reading that code for many years. Some might not even change that code; it might still exist. So make sure that our code is readable. It's well written with proper comments if it is needed, or even like these style guides will be there to follow how to even name a function. Those processes will become very critical, because if you look at the long term, to maintain that code or the productivity of the other engineers and all, these, at least technology or these are very important for a startup to push. At least there should be someone who have to push it, because otherwise you cannot sustain that too, like people moving, jumping across different companies. So even you don't have the same engineer staying for a longer duration and maintaining that code base. That process is very critical for somebody who's maybe a CTO or whoever is the heading the technology related stuff, to create that processes, make sure that there is documentation. Because we were trying to push these similar things when I was leading teams in Google, because there was no documentation of the code written, because the previous engineers, they didn't document it well. So these kind of things are very important for a startup environment, to at least making sure that when the people are moving across, moving, coming and going, and so it's easy for the startup to maintain that code base. Because like, see, the financials and all those things is a different challenge for a startup and all. At least as a team, to making sure that we have these processes, to at least see, even if we are building a product, making sure that we are able to maintain it, scale it, because scaling is a very important thing for a startup, because suddenly you might see a lot of users and now you have to scale, and you can't just rewrite the whole thing. You don't have time and all. So that becomes critical in a startup environment. I would say it's more about the mindset, and these processes is critical to bring it, particularly from a company like bigger companies, because they have built these processes over the years. And even for a new person joining the teams, they will push them into that mold to follow that. That kind of may not happen in a startup, because you want to deliver, investors are asking, there is obviously there is a funding round, you need funding to survive, and to maybe showcase something. And but it's hard to balance those things, because see, I have seen in my own invested companies that are closing also. So it's because if you don't get the funding and you can't survive, because whatever companies that I have invested, I see only a few months of rundown, their fund will be there, and so they can't even predict the survival for a year. And so in that environment, people should always be looking for funding. And now it's hard to prioritize technical related things, these processes and all, because you have to deliver something to get the next funding. So it's not easy for startups to survive unless they have a backing. And so yeah, so whoever has survived and making it big, it's definitely you need some luck factor also, apart from the hard work needed.
Right. So as we are on this whole topic of investment and startups, right, and also tell the audience, Naren here is an angel investor. So you could just leave your pitch in the comments for him to check and reach out to you. So yeah, jokes aside, right? But you have a good amount of companies, almost 15, if not like what,
Yeah.
according to my knowledge, there might be more, but a few that I know and are very prominent in Mumbai, and I have seen this. One is Truly Madly, and there is Tags, the food brand, right? And then I have City Flow,
Yeah,
like the
city.
buses that are flying
Yeah.
to and pro office, right? So like you have invested in a lot of startups, right? So just to deviate from the segment of corporate and all that stuff, and since also a lot of young people and students now are more excited to know about investments with the whole Shark Tank and the exposure that they're getting to the investment things, right? So just like a question from an individual to an angel investor, like, because I also have a startup like we're running. So like what do you look for a startup, like before deciding to invest, or even look at taking a look at a portfolio? What do you, like an investor, like you would say, are the key points that you look?
So before talking about the startup investment, like just for the investment, I'm not a big risk taker in general. Like if somebody asks me about that too, like where I am exited from the full time industry, more like fire kind of financial independence, retire early kind of approach. You have to take less risk to
Right.
be in that mode. So I even like for people who ask me about investment related things, my first the tip would be, see, if you have money, your priority should be to preserve that money. Don't worry about multiplying that. Your first goal should be not to lose it, because just earning it back is not easy, and it takes a lot more years if you lose it. So starting with that approach, because so my goal is always preserve whatever my investment is, without worrying about the inflation or how much it makes and all. So having that in mind, then you can take some risk about how much percentage of your corpus you can take risk and all. Based on that thought process, my startup investment comes in one portion where I can take some risk, and that too, as I said, don't invest more with the assuming that you will be successful. So as an investor, so at least have that boundary set to some extent, so that you won't lose your whole investment. So having that at a higher level, and then if you are interested in the startups, because why I invested in a startup is more as one more asset class, whether I can
Correct.
whether I can get benefit from that growth in that area, that too where India is with so many 100+ unicorns, right?
Correct.
So can I be, but again, it's not easy. See, it's not that just even so there is no success formula that then everyone would have picked. So one is I just wanted to be there also, even though I'm sure that nothing is guaranteed, so there is a risk involved. So whatever I have invested may not give back whatever the initial amount itself. So that is the mindset I always start with, so that you are not over committing yourself, because you might be interested many of the ideas, many of the startups, many will look like it will become big, but there will be so many things. Even I have seen some closing down with unexpected reasons and all, which you're not in your control also. So it should be ready at least for that before investing, and at the same time, which one to pick? Like, see, I invested all these startups. I don't remember investing directly with anyone. It's mostly through Let's Venture. I'm using that platform. Let's Venture is because that's where you sounded similar to you guys. Let's Upgrade sounded similar to the Let's
Yeah.
Venture. I use that platform. So one advantage is, people come there and pitch their ideas, startups, and the Let's Venture as a platform do these initial screening to some extent. And I have invested. I'm not just focused in my investments. I am not focused to one particular area. It's not that I'm an IT guy and just related to some IT services or that kind of a thing. So I have invested on multiple sectors, and it's purely based on one is general. If it's see EV is a hot area, and I have my presence there in some of the interesting things like Zip. Mobility related, I have invested there. So similarly, like City Flow, I think, and some of these investments is one is whether you're interested in the idea and whether it has the potential, and whether you as a user also, whether it makes sense that okay, it has promise of using that. And you will also hear the pitch talk from there, and how their financials are looking, because it's there are some startups where I have invested in the initial idea itself before they are earning any stuff there. I might just like the idea, and so I believe that okay, this has the potential, and somewhere there may be more risk, because you're just believing in that idea, and maybe some background about the founders. Maybe they would have founded some other already or their education background might be, give some clue that okay, they might have some skill set to execute, and somewhere I will also see who are the other investors invested in this, and what is the current profit they are making, whether they're sustaining to some extent, so I try to see these different attributes, and sometimes it may be just a gut feel that, for example, some are very already script box. I'm invested in script box, which is already big and doing great. And but again, if you look at Byju's, nothing is guaranteed, and it's but still you try to take some risk, and I still feel that see, I'm not a successful angel investor there, because that will happen only when you make more money with the investments. So whatever I say, even that without success, that doesn't carry any, even with success, I don't agree that it will carry, because it may be just sometimes luck that okay, some of my investments, because even in startup investments, they talk about these, like you have to invest in multiple startups so that at least 1, 2, 3 can cover all the investments. You can't expect the returns in almost all, or it's only few have to give you back the money. So that means you have to have more investments. So and I'm not a big investor in each one. Since I go through a platform, I try to distribute it into multiple things with smaller investments.
Right.
And also and also it's like, see, you're part, I'm trying to be part of this ecosystem, and I'm not heavily involved with any founders in interacting with all, but if someone is interested, there's an option so that I can just help out with my experience and all. That is just one avenue that I started doing for, I think, more than 3 years now when I started investing there.
Right. So as you mentioned, right, India has seen a lot of unicorns. You can say majorly into 2023, 22-23, and there where we have seen a lot of startups come and revolutionize every sector possible, right?
Yeah.
So what trends do you observe, like setting, like observing, and when you of course when you're planning to invest, of course you would have to go through a lot of startups and then decide, okay, this is something that matches my interest or where I see possible growth, right? So what like do you observe any trends in the startup ecosystem, and how do you think like they would shape of the future of entrepreneurship? Because nowadays I guess I might have heard this, like priorly entrepreneurship was not a choice. It was like, okay, I want to do something, I'm going to build. Now it is a choice, like people choose to become an entrepreneur, right? I
True.
guess I heard this in some podcast of Anupam Mittal, right?
Yeah.
Where he mentioned like, okay, nowadays it's a choice, right? Every other person like, okay, out of he's working somewhere, okay, let me start something, right? They choose to be an entrepreneurship. But how do you overall you see this entrepreneurship ecosystem going ahead and the startup ecosystem as a whole thing?
See, I think at least from the area perspective, from my exposure into Let's Venture, I have seen in all these like kind of it's distributed everywhere. Like it's not that people are focused on only one kind of sector. It's everywhere. People are trying. That may be because okay, funding was good. In
Correct.
2020, 2022, and so that may be one reason. Maybe nowadays, based on who all survive, you will try to figure out, because even I was before the chat GPT thing, there were AI startups. Even I have some investments in like Secure Skin and some
Mhm.
others which are in AI products. So people were pushing for AI also before the chat GPT thing, and nowadays with a kind of coming to the main focus area, many will try to just match the AI and try to say that they're doing something related to AI, and maybe because they think that some funding will be there. So I would say this is similar to career decision making. You have to see where are the openings before making a choice whether you have a better future. Here also the same thing happens, like how the funding, they pick the data, and which kind of companies are getting the funding now also. So that is where so I don't recall the recent ones, at least whatever Let's Ventures data, but slowly you might figure it out at least this year, which one survive at least for the next round of funding and all. So based and it is purely it comes down to these investors only, like who are ready
Correct.
to fund, and that decides where the future for the new entrepreneurs, because see, unless you already have money to fund your startup, then you are in a good position, to back your idea and all. But most of these startups that I see with few months of survival of fund, it's hard, because now even like then even it's not in your control also. Now investors will start controlling the ideas, or the how to proceed and all. It's overall, I generally it's a good thing for the country and our system to more unicorns coming up. But at the same time, I will suggest the students to be aware of the risk they are taking, because it's their career, and
Correct.
uh, it's don't go by just the success numbers. Try to plan it well. Maybe like, see, I might want to work for 5 years in a bigger company, have some build my career, at least value system or some profile, and maybe then I want to explore this. Because see, if you fail in your startup thing, you should have some plan. Because see, I don't know, I have at least in my career, some of the workshop I have done, I have a YouTube video where I talk about an exit plan. Like, so for students, what I ask them is, before entering the industry, come with an exit plan. Maybe
Okay.
exit plan can be a number of years. I just want to
Mhm.
be in the industry for say 10 years, 20 years. Then you will try to have some plan. What will I do in 20 years? Should I make some, okay, so many crores, and that is my goal, or what is that? Because then you will think about the exit goal, right? Because in as a student, you have these exit plan, that okay, I will finish in 4 years my degree, or 2 years in degree, and that is very clear. Whereas in a working environment, in a career, you don't have that. You think that it is a continuous path, and then what happens is, you will take wrong decisions, or you don't value your time. You will lose out much of years quickly, because it is a routine. Your work life is a routine which goes very quickly. You won't realize it. So if you have an exit plan, then you can also, like, even for us doing a startup also, then you will have some, say, I will only try startup for 5 years, and if I don't succeed, I will take plan B. Because if you don't have such a plan, then it's hard, because would have lost some few years of your life, and it is only one life, and you don't know how your mindset will be at that time. After seeing a failure, it's not easy. So I ask them to come with an exit plan, and then it will help making decisions easily.
Great. So, yep, that is some interesting take on the startup, and for students or professionals who are looking to venture out into building their own businesses, right? So, yet another achievement that is on your profile is something that I appreciate a lot, and I see very few techies, or let's call the veterans of the industry, do, is giving back to the community. And I keep on reciting this because this is something I am very fond of, and we at Let's Upgrade actively are on the path of achieving that, is giving back to the developer community, or building a good community for developers to come together and create a greater impact, right? So you also have a community, right, which I'd like to now talk about, and also you know make students aware that something like this exists, at least at your local level, where people are watching this from Bangalore, right, and they can come and associate with you. So let's what inspired you to start? Like, of course you do the mentoring stuff and everything that is there, but you can say, what inspired you to start a community like tech savvy, like that you have built, right? And how does this Like, what is the
So
basically what I would
yeah,
like to know is, just before you start, is what is tech savvy all about, and what was
okay.
the idea
So
behind starting it?
yeah. Okay, so I think okay to just talk about the tech savvy you're mentioning. So this is an NGO that I started with some of my friends from the IT industry, and the idea was it's like the tagline is bit of tech, bites of seva. Some bring some bits of the technology that you know in the IT industry as engineers, and we will do bites of seva to service to the society. So that was the
Correct.
idea, and the goal was for the IT industry people to help out in the outside world as a service where technology related need is there. And so that's what the NGO name is Tech Seva, and it's a tekseva.org, tekseva.org. And TEK is more like it's a tech only because there was no URL when we created.
Understand.
So,
I really
so
relate to this.
and Tech Savvy is the volunteer of Tech Seva. We call it as Tech Savvy. It's more like from tech savvy become a tech savvy kind of play around the world. And so the NGO is the Tech Seva, and it's a small team. We started in Jan 2023, kind of officially, and we did some 6 to 7 programs in and around Bangalore, where we did some career workshops for government engineering colleges, or even no coding workshops for some economically backward students in some smaller schools, or some rural programs to teach thinking for the rural students. And also we have some 3 4 categories where we try to help students to how to get ready for the industry, and basically who are don't have the advantages of the bigger cities or the top colleges and all. So how to at least help them to at least prepare for their career, get a job and all. And at the same time some rural side how we can help out with mainly education related and career and all, more like IT guys from the IT industry, how they can help out. And also we want to help to smaller NGOs where they need some technology related help. It may be they just want some help with donation collecting, some integration, online donation and all such things. So this the idea triggered when I was with Google. We will have a Google serve as a 1 week helping out with working with NGOs. And my one of my friend Ajay, he was running these things in Google, and there are many NGO requesting Google, and Googlers to help out with their technical related needs because they don't have any technical people, and any IT engineer, not necessarily a Googler, can easily do these things by searching over the web and helping them out. So this is a good way to for at least IT people who are already sad in their work environment, just to interact with people and be satisfied with that and all. And also it can help others. So that's where we, and since we are in the IT industry, and I thought this is one area. It's not that the new thing. There are many NGOs who are playing in these areas. But since it's an NGO, it's okay to be a competitor kind of a thing because everyone wants to give. It's not that we are competing for the profit. So I thought at least some of my friends were already in the NGO space. In parallel they were working, and we started this 1 year back, and so we're slowly growing it. We even trying to do some internships also we did so that we can encourage some students and get connected and all. It's still early stage and a small team, and so that is about the Texava. And uh, s- so most of my friends who are involved, they're still working in the IT industry full time. Slowly, at least, when they exit the industry and all, they can put more effort. I'm the only one, I guess, currently who is not completely, in the IT industry and have moved out and involved with this. But there are many folks who wants to, at least the people in the IT industry. So we want to just, combine with the at least the students who, as a volunteer also to expand. There are some talks with some engineering college students also where they can contribute. Where we train them to give these some of these. There's a no coding kind of training for high school students where we can drive that through these engineering students as volunteers, so that at least people can think about programming without coding itself. Just concept of programming it's more
Correct.
like object oriented programming related concepts without
Mhm.
coding. And so we don't have any limitations. We just want to help, mainly focusing on students or early career uh, professionals with these things. And and since I'm also personally doing these mentoring and coaching at a
Correct. Yeah.
personal level through these ADP list, which is a platform for many, and not many students, at least with this, discussion. Whoever is watching, they can go and check adplist.org, such websites which are free for anyone to get the mentorship. Because students, most of them, at least in our times and all, we were not aware of the importance or even access also, right? You can't just if you want to talk to someone from Google, Oracle, or any company, it's not easy nowadays. Maybe they will try with LinkedIn and all, but
Mhm.
if you just ping in LinkedIn, they may not accept, or they may not respond. Whereas a platform like ADP list and all, you can they're ready. There are mentors who are ready to help for free, and they're happy to ask them questions. And for students, just to get that connection, at least you need networking to survive in this industry, and it's a good way to start, just to talk to them and build that network. So, and also, like, as a mentor there, see, I can talk to so many people across, like, see, I may be talking to some student from Russia, and it's helping them, or some engineers, some from African countries who were struggling for their survival itself, and they're interested to learn some front end coding and all. So it's you make a very big impact with whatever just sharing your experiences and all. That I feel like it's a even though I might be helping someone else, but at least it's a self I will be happy that some of the things is so useful to someone else somewhere in the remote corner of the world, who may not have that access to these engineers or the experienced people to guide them and all. So yeah, it may be like my own self a need that I started doing this mentoring. And I had this idea about the NGO thing before, when I was with Google. So just trying to combine that. So for students, they can explore these, at least as a mentoring
Great,
platforms.
great. So, just to put a ending line on this whole segment, apart from the work that you do, guys, right? Networking and participating or becoming a part of a tech community or any community for that matter is equally important, because it is not all about the things that you can code, but also the people you meet, the networks that, because I guess for the people who have been in the industry, right, they know that you could get your things done and you can basically crack jobs with networking faster than you could crack jobs by applying, right?
True.
Because good proper networking, proper references work way faster than the way it would work on a traditional resume application, all that process, right? So before we move on, right, just a note to the viewers, we are going to put the link to Naren's ADP list platform right down, so you can go and check out the link. And whoever is like wants to connect with them and take mentoring, right, there are various options that you could choose from his offerings. Like he's very influential and he has mentored a lot of students, so please go and check out the link that we'll put in the description. You can literally find it down here, and we also might leave a link up here, I guess, yeah, up here on the card somewhere here or there, so you can just go and check that, and you can please connect with him. He might help you figure out something where you're stuck. You might be looking out for a mentor, like he might just put you on the right path something or other might help out. So please go and check that. Right. So moving on to the last segment, right? This is where we address the students, right? And this is something we also hear a lot about from the students which we connect to, right? So like since your experience from starting back in the 90s till now, almost 24 years and more maybe, right? So what skills do you think are crucial for students entering into tech industry today? See, we hear a lot about tech skills and everything, but I believe it is a lot more than just tech skills, right? So that is something that we want to hear from you because you have been there. Tech skills is something we know. Okay, you need to know XYZ languages, but what apart from that is very crucial.
So at least the what I normally suggest is I think to start with, expectation is what people start with. They I think people have talked to me about, okay, they are very interested in ML and they just want to work on ML. Some fancy thing in ML. So they have these dreams. It's good to have dreams, but your work environment won't be like that, or the work, it may not be like the fancy thing as they have dreamed about. Because even if it is ML related thing, you might be just running some script on some data and using some libraries and all. It's not that you're implementing a new algorithm and all. So they start with some expectation which is not same as reality. So it's okay, like slowly you might realize the work environment is different, but what happens is they take some decisions based on that virtual expectation. Because like they might think that, oh, okay, this work may not look like what I am dreamed of, so I won't go for this job, I will go somewhere else and all. So that may be a wrong decision, because even if you get a very good job where you are, let's say, implementing some complex algorithms, you won't be doing it for many years. Maybe in the start of your career you will do that. If you want to grow as a team lead, you won't be doing that lot of coding. You might be reviewing the code, you might be reviewing the designs, you might be designing, or you might be thinking about a roadmap for the team and all. So if you are thinking about career growth, that means you are also changing, the role is changing. What skill set you will expose or you will showcase or use will also change. So if you have some static dream of some pure technical related things, remember that that will change as you grow. So don't stick to that. Be open minded. And because some of the things, even some of my friends who are in leadership roles, they talk about is how can you create more impact, how can you face the challenges. Those are the generic things you should be thinking about. Can you face any challenge? And it's fixed. For example, like if I'm hiring someone, and maybe one important skill I want to look for is, can that person finish the work? So even if they may be brilliant and come up with some fancy ideas and all, what important is, if they pick up some work, can they finish it on within that deadline? Those are
Correct.
all very very important skills that you should be good at. So at least they should start focusing on these things. So one is, can you might be very good at all or prepared and all, but you should think about you as like, what is the value you're bringing in. So because that's what will as a technical skills, and also the soft skill, like as a person, what you are bringing to the, at least the team and company, that will help you for the growth for the long term. So at least you should start thinking in those lines. And also like how you deal with people. Like it's not easy, like see the way you work with in your let's say in a college environment, it's always you want to win over others. Like if you want to be the number one, everyone else has to be below you. So
Correct.
so whereas in industry it won't be like that. It's more like we talk about win-win thing. So you should help others to win and you will also win. That kind, it's a different attitude change. So you should be ready for those things. And because now you cannot look at the other person as a competitor for yourself. So it's more like it's a family. Even though I don't ask them to treat it like a family, but it's more like a family indirectly, because you're helping others to succeed, which will define your own success. But at the same time, you might have these feelings of, okay, what if the other one takes my credit and all. So there are like I normally talk about these footprints. So you should not just yeah, because in as a student, you know that there is an exam where you showcase your skill sets, but in work environment you need to leave your footprints. It's more like if you have done some analysis, is there any footprint to showcase that your work? You should be thinking on those outcomes also, like what is that will give a proof for my work, because that indirectly avoids these at least differences among the teammates and all. When you gel together, at least you have proof for your own work, and you also try to create these impacts at least in your journey over the years. And also, like as I said, if your computer science background, analyze a lot of code, read others code and see whether you can quickly read and write beautiful code, as in it's readable from others, because those are the skills you need. Because it's not that something you just write and it works. It is more about after say 1 month or few months, you might have to go back to the same code and fix an issue, and you would have forgotten that issue. So it's so those are some of these good habits which you need to learn, to survive in the industry. And also it's open for all the challenges, because as you grow it's more abstract and things that you need to deal with, because you may not have any idea about how the product will evolve, or how you will just start with an idea and you explore. So there will be more fuzziness as you move up the ladder for making the decisions. But decision making is a critical thing. Taking responsibility is a critical thing, because you will be owning things. It's not that someone will watching you asking about whether you finished work or not. In a big company, they will expect you to communicate back saying you're on track, or so we expect that responsibility. So to grow, they should start building these things, because you have to build trust.
Correct.
So you have to showcase these kind of responsibilities from the day one, or quickly build, or watch others within your team environment who are doing great, and then pick those skills slowly. And don't compare with anyone in the same company or across the company, because you will always end up unhappy, and because you'll start comparing what they're earning, or their growth will be different than your growth. There will be younger person maybe leading you, and so you should compare your own self. As that's what I followed. I thought that my path is unique, and it cannot be compared with anyone across. So that is one thing you should never compare with anyone. It's your own journey. And so some of these things, and also like see, in the initial years you will have more time to put effort and create some success. So concentrate on that. Then the later on there will be other issues with your personal life, health, fitness, all those things will come into picture. So you will have less time related to work later stages of the career. So initial career you have more focus, and you can return. There will be more returns for your investment of time. That can be done. And nowadays, see, I am studying happiness and well-being and psychology nowadays. So from that angle also, I will tell them to focus on the well-being also. Don't all these fear of missing out, or all this. Don't worry too much about that also. Concentrate on your well-being and mental peace. At least for that, at least have your friends connections. Build that social connection. Keep that, because this is a stressful industry. It's there is no retirement age, and if you don't have an exit plan, you are stuck here. And with more money, you will not tend to leave the industry, because you will change your lifestyle and you will be addicted to this. more money thing, and you will destroy your health and peace. So come with some balancing thing, prioritizing your well-being also. Try to have some boundaries also for your personal life, fitness. Start doing those things also. So yeah, I think some of these things to start with. Maybe like talk to people as mentors, so that at
Correct.
least there is some more inputs instead of getting lost in this comparison with your colleagues and all.
Right. I guess that was a very insightful answer for students who are looking to venture out into tech as a career and start right now. Right. So I hope all the guys are watching. Right. Would have benefited a lot. I myself got to know a lot of things about how companies work behind. Like till now, I was telling everyone that Google people also Google things, but now I got to know that there is an internal search engine, right, which is not accessible
Yeah,
to everyone for where Googlers Google.
yeah,
Right. So that is one thing. And yeah, one quiz for the students who and everyone who is watching, right? uh just find out. I guess Naren mentioned it in the podcast, but yeah, just go and find out the book that Naren has co-authored and put the name in the comments, and we'll have something. We'll give shout out to the people who guess it correct in the next podcast, right? So on this note, I'd like to first of all use thanks to Naren for taking out time from the busy schedule and helping us bring this to reality and getting all those insights from the developer ecosystem to the students. And yeah, so with this, we'll call it a wrap for this particular segment, and we'll meet you guys again with yet another podcast. Let us know in the comments who you would like us to meet next, or if you are one of those influential people from the industry and you want us to podcast you, please reach out to us on LinkedIn, and we'll surely host you in one of these sessions. Right. So yeah, and before summarizing, as I mentioned, the link to Naren's song, yes, the song, right, for the RCB
yeah.
song, we are going to leave it in the description. And secondly, the link to his ADP list mentorship profile will be in the description. So please surely go and check it out and make sure that you book his time and get to learn a lot from his experience in industry. Right. With that, we'll say you goodbye. Thank you everyone for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.